Yes, that is right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the World of Juice Hoops channel. And welcome to something new. Now, I know in the past I've done flashback series with the Lakers on NBA 2K23. You can go back and check that entire playlist out. It is on the channel if you want to go check that out. It is on NBA 2K22 though. And with the drop of NBA 2K23 and with the release of the new My NBA Era mode, I thought it would be interesting to shake things up a little bit. So you know how in FIFA or FIFA content creators have done in the past, and I feel like it's more common in the FIFA community, so that's why I use that as an example. You can do it in like a Madden series or an MLB The Show series, I guess, but I just have, in my experiences, I've come across this type of series more often in the FIFA community. It is not so much a road to glory as much as it is a journeyman, I guess you could call it. It's more of a Journeyman Series than it is a Road to Glory, but there are aspects of a Road to Glory in this series, or at least I hope to have aspects of a Road to Glory in this series, but I don't want to really call it a Road to Glory series. I want to call it more of a Journeyman because I feel like that's more along the lines of what it will end up being. And if you're not familiar with what a Journeyman Series is, on FIFA, from what I've seen in my experiences coming across Journeyman Series, you take a manager, in that case, in FIFA, a head coach in our case, and you start them out at a club. Sometimes it's a lower end league, like maybe League 1 or League 2, something like that. And then you build them up. You try to win as much as you can in the time that you have, and once you win the most that you can win at that specific spot, you move on. You get other offers from other teams around the world, in FIFA's case, around the league in our case, and you continue to progress. So you don't stay with one team the entire series. It builds a lot of uncertainty in the series, a lot of possibilities, you could say, and a lot of interest, I feel like, because you're not always stuck with one team, with one franchise. You're not stuck with a certain set of players, always, and you're not stuck with just the same old boring franchise that tends to happen over the course of a series on NBA or on Madden or on MLB The Show, like any series. So the Journeyman Series has always intrigued me. The concept of it has always intrigued me. And I felt like with this inclusion of the NBA Eras mode into NBA 2K23, I thought that this would be the perfect time to try something new and to try out a series of this concept. So to get more in depth into what is going to happen in this series, this is going to be the Juice Journeyman Series. And by Juice Journeyman Series, I mean that we are going to take a guy. Let me show you what we're working with here. We have a GM. His name is Juice. Let's go to the edit GM. This is the guy that we're rocking with right here. This is Juice. He's in his 30s. He's in his early 30s, just turned 30. And we are going to move as a journeyman through the NBA, trying to win as many championships and as many awards as possible. We also have a trophy showcase, which can tell us how many Lombardis we've won, how many Executive of the Years we've won, that sort of stuff. We also have a portfolio, which tells us how many championships we won, which tells us how many playoff appearances we've won, or we've made, and how many Executive of the Year awards we've had. So that is also a possibility. And as you can see in the bottom left, it says resign position. So if I were to hit square, it says move to a new team. So when we've won enough championship, when I feel like we've conquered our first team, I will hit square and I will choose move to new team, and we will move and look for a new head coach or a new spot, a new GM spot, whoever's looking for a new GM, whether it be the Mavericks or the Heat or the Knicks or the Cavs, whoever it is, whoever it may be, whoever's looking for a new GM. But there are some wrinkles to this Journeyman Series. One of the wrinkles is we're starting with the Chicago Bulls. We are starting in the 1983-84 season, which is the farthest you can go back in the my NBA eras. This is the Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, this is the Bird versus Johnson, like Bird versus Magic era, basically. So we're starting as far back as possible. We will go until we reach 2022/2023, the current real life years. So this will span, what is that, like 4, 5 decades, 6 decades? 4 decades. Yeah, I think it's around 4 decades, I think. Maybe a little higher than that. I'm pretty sure. So this will span that, and we will go until the end. Another wrinkle is I can choose to bring a head coach with me to a certain team. So let's say that if we get to the Jordan era and I've felt like I've conquered the Chicago Bulls. Well, if I choose to go to, I don't know, if I choose to go to the Indiana Pacers, if they're offering me a job as the executive GM in Indiana, and I feel like I want to bring a head coach along that I felt like was my guy. Like it has to be a guy that we've had as a coach on a previous team that we've had, that we've been the GM of. So let's say, for example, we have Phil Jackson as our head coach on the Bulls, since he was the coach of the Bulls during the Jordan era. But we're not in the Jordan era just yet. But let's say, for example, we have Phil Jackson as the head coach of the Bulls in the Jordan era in the 90s. And then I choose, we've conquered everything that we can as Chicago Bulls. Then I choose to take the job in Indiana. I can choose to bring Phil Jackson along with me for the duration of his career and of the series. So basically, it does have to be Phil Jackson, but that's just the coach that popped in my head because he was one of the most dominant coaches of this era. So it could be any coach, but Phil Jackson is the one that I used. So I could choose. I don't have to, but I could choose to bring along a Phil Jackson from the Bulls to the Pacers to whatever other team I may end up going to after we've conquered the Pacers, from then on until he ends up retiring. So that is the one wrinkle. The other wrinkle is, and it's along the same lines as the head coach, I can choose to bring up to 2 players from a previous team to the new place that I work. So again, we'll use the Bulls to Pacers example. Let's say we go from the Magic and Bird era to the Jordan era, and we've won, I don't know, 3-4 championships in that span, and we have Michael Jordan and I don't know, some other guy. I don't know. I guess maybe who's another good player here? We have Michael Jordan, and we have, I just saw Gus Williams on the little ticker thing at the bottom. So Michael Jordan and Gus Williams are on our team, let's say. They're not yet at least. But we have those 2 players, and when I move to Indiana, I can bring up to 2 players with me. So I could choose to bring Michael Jordan and Gus Williams over to Indiana to continue their careers with me. So that is the goal. And I don't have to choose 2 every time. I can choose 1, I can choose none. Like if I choose to go without a guy, like I move to a new team, the Supersonics, and I don't like any of the current players, I don't feel like they fit what I'm going to do in Seattle, then I don't have to bring anybody over. It's not like a lock that I have to bring anybody over. Same thing with the coach. And there is another wrinkle. One more thing that I want to say is that if we ever have a losing season, then we have to trade away one of our best players. So if we have, and I say a losing season, it's a loose term because in the first year, it's going to be a losing season in Chicago. So when I trade away my best player, I may have already done that to get to the point where we have under 500 record. So that is another little wrinkle. And like I said, this is going to span from 1983 to 2023. I hope you guys enjoy it. I know it's kind of a foreign concept in the world of NBA 2K, and I'm still working out some of the kinks. I still haven't fully decided all of the official quote-unquote rules and regulations for how this series is going to work. There will be like bonuses and goals and stuff like that. So like if we win 3 straight NBA finals and we get 3 straight championships, then we'll get like a boost to our GM badges or like our traits or whatever. You know, like when you go into a GM and they have like, oh, they have the snake trait or they have the loyalty trait, or they like, so you know the traits I'm talking about. So like we can get a boost to that, or I can choose to boost up a couple of our players. Like I can separate those points, whatever I would have given to myself as the GM, I can choose to give those points to our team and make our certain individual players better. So that's another goal. And if we go 3 straight losing seasons, I have to deduct from our team to make us worse. So it's really going to be interesting the way that we build this team to try and not be super bad for a consistent period of time, because then it just hurts the team in general. And as you can see, we currently have a profit of $623,000 in the bank account. That will fluctuate throughout this series when we bring in new players, when we trade away new player or old players, when we just transition between eras. The money will fluctuate because the salary cap will get higher, the player contracts will get higher, and this is going to be a good way to see the change in player contracts and just salary cap in general in the NBA from the 80s all the way till modern day, because some of the max contracts people were getting in the 80s are $1 to $2, maybe $3 million higher than the league minimum nowadays. You would never see a team give Magic Johnson or Michael Jordan or Larry Bird a $100 million contract. That just didn't exist in the NBA at this time because the NBA wasn't making money like that. But 4 decades later, the NBA is rolling in cash, and they can afford to pay these guys the $100 million contracts that they get, $70 million contracts that they get, 60, 50, 40, all the guaranteed money that the NBA players get. They can afford to do it because the salary cap is crazy. So that's another little interesting thing that we get to watch and witness and see just how it changes. I'm very interested to see that. And I do want to say, as far as gameplay, how it's going to work, I want to do it a little bit differently than how I do other series on the channel, because I want this to be its own thing. Like, I want to separate this from anything else anybody's ever done in the world of 2K. So I kind of want to make it more simulation based, more reliant on how good I am at building a team, because I am the GM after all. I'm not the head coach. I'm not any one of the players specifically. I'm the GM of the team. So it's my job to build a team that I feel like can go out there night in and night out and get a win and eventually win a championship. So that is a big piece of this entire concept in this entire series. So yeah, I will jump in and I will play some games here and there, but I want this to be simulation based and relying on individual players' stats and how good they are in the game as a base, and not with me controlling them, because with me controlling them, I can make them artificially better, and then we can just go on and win championship after championship after championship. I don't want that to happen, because then it just gets boring and then you don't want to watch. So doing it like this, I feel like adds more variety and adds more variables to the pot, because I could, on paper, build what I think is a great team, but when you actually see them on the court and I'm not controlling them, they could end up being not as good as what we end up thinking. So that's just another little added thing that is very interesting to me, and I think is going to separate this series from anything else that's been done. And by simulation, I mean we're gonna jump in and simcast some games, and we'll jump in and watch, but I won't play. I'll just commentate. But we will jump in and watch some games and watch how the team performs. We won't do that a ton, but maybe like once or twice per episode, we'll jump in on a few games and watch them. And we won't watch for very long, because I know that can get pretty boring after a while. But I do want it to be more simulation-based and more ratings-based. Think of, if you've ever heard of the YouTuber Mr. Hurricane. I don't know if he's a Madden YouTuber. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. Check him out if you have, Mr. Hurricane. He does a similar series, not Journeyman style, but he does a similar series with Madden. He's become very prominent for it, where he takes a team and he becomes the GM, and he doesn't play the games. He jumps in and he watches them as you would on TV. Like, he goes with the broadcast camera and he watches the simulation play out. He doesn't control the offense, the defense, nothing like that. And then he watches it. And sometimes it goes good, sometimes it goes bad. But that's the fun part of the series. And I really enjoy that concept. I really enjoy the way that he does it. I think he does a really good job. So that's kind of, I want to incorporate some part of that into this series to kind of separate it for it. Obviously, we have the different aspect, the added aspect of a Journeyman series where we won't be staying with just one team, which I feel like it's gotten a little overlooked, and that's on me. So I know I discussed the Journeyman series, or the Journeyman part and the Journeyman factor of this series earlier, but I want to get a little bit more in depth with it. So basically, how this is going to work is, we're going to start in 1983 with the Chicago Bulls. We already know that. We're going to go and try and build the team in year number one. Obviously, the first draft class that we will have is the 1984 draft class, which is Jordan, Barkley, Hakeem Olajuwon, all those guys. You know the 1984 draft class. Sam Bowie, everybody. It's very famous. One of the best draft classes of all time. And as the Chicago Bulls, I'm going to try to do my best to keep it as realistic as possible to start. So I will do my best to be bad in year number one in 1983 so that we have the best odds to get the number one overall pick to possibly draft Michael Jordan. Now, I know Michael Jordan in real life didn't go number one. He went number 3. Olajuwon and Bowie went before him. But I will try my best to get Michael Jordan. Then we'll go a few years and get to the 1987 draft, and I'll try to get Scottie Pippen. Once I have Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan, hopefully, then we can continue to progress. So I'm going to be with the Chicago Bulls for a few seasons. It's going to be at least, I don't know, maybe 5 seasons, 6 seasons before we even get really started with the Chicago Bulls. So we're going to be with the Bulls for a good chunk of our young career in the start of this series. But then, once we get into the 90s, then we'll spend the entire Magic and Bird era with the Bulls, basically. Because the Magic and Bird era goes from like 83 to 91, 92, and then the Jordan era picks up from 92 to 2001, I think, 2002. Is when the Kobe era begins. So we will spend, it's pretty much a guarantee that we will spend the entire Bulls, or the entire the entire Magic and Bird era with the Chicago Bulls. Because then when we get to the Jordan era, then we can start. That's when obviously it's called the Jordan era because Michael Jordan was the best player in the league, maybe the best of all time, and he was winning 6 championships, 2 three-peats. So we will try to replicate that. I don't know if that's going to be possible. We may even win more championships before the three-peat. You never know, because if I put a good enough team around young Jordan in the late 80s, who knows? We could go on a run. That's possible. It's very possible. Anything could happen. So then, once I feel like we've won enough, if we've won like 1 three-peat with the Bulls, and I feel like it's time to move on, at that point we would have been with the team for maybe a decade as the GM. Then it'll be time to move on, find a new team, and start it over. And yeah, maybe I'd pull Michael Jordan from the Bulls and have him follow me. Or maybe I choose Scottie Pippen or whoever I have on that team at that point. Who knows? It's very, very much up in the air. Jordan and Pippen are basically the only 2 guarantees I'm gonna try my hardest to get on the Bulls. And then we move on to a new team and maybe a new coach. I don't know. Depends. And then we go from there. We try to build that team up. And we try to win a 3-peat or a 4-peat or dominate the league in some way. And then we move on from that team. And we try to build up another team. So you get the concept of how this series is most likely going to work. And it's going to involve a lot of simulation with the stats and with the player ratings really coming into play and being a factor. So I feel like I've done a pretty good job of explaining the rules, explaining they're not really rules, explaining the way this series is going to work, the concept behind it. Now it's time to take a look at what we're working with for the beginning of the series. Our best player is Reggie Theus. 26 years old, 81 overall. There's a reason the Bulls were top 3 to get Michael Jordan in real life. Because this team is bad. This team is very bad. And as you can see, we only have about a starting rotation and maybe a 6-man as real players. The rest of these guys are auto-generated guys. But our star player, Reggie Theus, he's on a 4-year contract worth about $1.79 million per year. That's what I'm talking about with seeing how the salary cap changes. But he looks like he's a really, really good inside guy. As a shooting guard, it kind of concerns me. But again, we're in the 80s. So shooting guards aren't technically shooting guards in the 80s. But he looks like a pretty solid player. He's probably going to be here for season number 1 because we need to have a way to sell tickets. We're still a business at the end of the day. Fans need somebody to cheer for. And Reggie Theus can be that guy for the first season until we get Michael. Everybody else is up in the air. Everybody else, they could get moved at any point this season to help us secure a top 3 pick, hopefully the number 1 pick. Now, I know there's a lottery, so we're not guaranteed the number 1 pick like we would be if this was Madden in the NFL. If we were the worst team in the league, we'd be guaranteed the number 1 pick. I know that there's a lottery, so it's not a guarantee, but we still want to be bad enough to be in the running, in contention to have a top 3 pick and to have the number 1 pick to get Michael Jordan, because he's going to be that game changer like he is in real life. And I'm not expecting it to be easy off the bat with Michael. But we don't have a lot to work with. We really don't. We have our most expensive guy here, Dave Corzine, is making $3.4 over 5 years. He is the most expensive player. Our starting center, 6'11". But we also have to think about what eras we're in. And that's another interesting aspect to this series. And another interesting aspect to see how good Juice is at being a GM and how building a team, because we have to build a team for the eras. So we're in the 80s. The 80s is the ground and pound, dirty, get your knuckles dirty. Get in the paint, have a big man, and score. Big men are the key of the 80s. Then we get to the 90s. The 90s is more, we're stretching the floor, we're moving fast-paced, Jordan's hitting mid-range shots, the 3 points becoming more of a thing. So we got to try and build a a team for the 90s. And then we get to the 2000s, got to build a team for that where you're playing more flashy, you're playing more with the three-point line is a factor at that point. Then you get to the modern era where the three-point line is everything. You got your Steph Currys, your Trae Youngs, everybody's shooting threes. And the big man kind of goes away. The big man's still a valuable piece to get those rebounds, obviously. But it's not the be-all, end-all of a franchise. Like, if you don't have a dominant big man in the modern era, you're still a championship contender if you have really good guards and really good wings. But in the 80s, if you didn't have a big man that was a dominant force in the paint, you pretty much weren't a contender. So it's kind of interesting to see the development of the eras and the development of just the changes in basketball over the different decades. So that's another fun aspect of this series. What I'm thinking for moves in year number 1, I think we move to get younger because we're going to be bringing in a young rookie, Michael Jordan, in the offseason. So we need to move off, I don't want to say move off some of this money because there's really no money to move off. But we need to move off some of these older guys, these veteran guys, because I want to bring in a young core that can grow alongside Michael Jordan and maybe in a couple of seasons be a playoff team if everybody develops. That's kind of one of the goals that I want to go with in season number 1 here in Chicago. But with this team and with this series, I'm very excited. I hope you guys are excited as well. I am very, very curious about to see how this series does, the initial episode does, and how you guys respond to it and stuff, because I'm very excited about this. I think it's a really cool concept. I'm just a little bit skeptical of how you guys will receive it. I don't know if you guys will dig it or if you guys will just think it's dumb and boring because we're not going to be playing as much. Like, I still will take control of the team every once in a while and put up some shots and play some minutes and stuff like that. It's not going to be solely simulation and stat based, but the majority of it will, because I want to be the reason that I want the reason we won a championship, that I build a dominant team, not because I outplay the CPU. That's not what I want to do. So, at least for this series. So, I hope you guys go on to enjoy it. Let me know down below in the comments what you think. This first episode is not going to have any gameplay in it. It's not going to have any team building or rebuilding or aspects of it. This first episode, I guess you'd call it like episode 0, really, because this is just the introduction to the concept, introduction to what the series is going to contain, what it's going to be about, all that kind of stuff. So, if you guys do go on to enjoy this series and you enjoyed this episode, hit that like button. I really would appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel. Join the Juice Club. If you want to check out any other content that I may produce, you can go down to the description box and take a look at my main channel link and my third channel link. The main channel has nothing. Well, the main channel link has majority of Madden content, but there is a little bit of MLB The Show content on there as well, but the majority of it is Madden content. And the third channel, Juice Baseball, is all about MLB The Show. I'm currently doing a Cincinnati Reds rebuild on there. We're into year number 2 in that series, so if you want to go check up and catch up on that, feel free. The links are down below in the description, as always, of every single video on this channel. And that's going to do it for this first episode, this initial episode of the series. I'm really excited to see what you guys have to say and see if you guys are enjoying it, because I am very excited about it. I can't wait to sink my teeth into it and really get into the rebuilding aspect of 2K and get into the exciting part of seeing how the eras develop and how the changes come, and like bringing in new teams. Like, we're in the 80s, we're going to get expansion teams when we get into the 90s, like the Grizzlies, the Heat, the Raptors. And then when we get into like the 2000s, you got the Bobcats and all that kind of stuff, and relocations and all that stuff. We could take a control of an expansion team and change their course of history forever. Like, if I choose, after I get done with the Bulls, if I choose to become the general manager of the new expansion Toronto Raptors, we could change their whole franchise. That's another cool aspect of it. So we're gonna see the progression of the NBA in this series, which is just really, really cool in my opinion. So I hope you guys do go on to enjoy it. I'm really excited. I hope you are too. If you enjoyed, leave it a like, subscribe to the channel, join the Juice Club. I will catch you guys in the next episode. Thanks for stopping by. Peace.